I don't mind that. I just really don't like the idea of just like making random stuff up, because all a load of random stuff's going to do, it's going to make someone unnecessarily sore because it's unfamiliar movements. And again, for a week's holiday, I just don't really see the point. Right, we go again with another episode of the Smart Strength Training podcast. So this episode goes out on the 30th of April, so just after the Easter holidays. I've been preparing a lot of my clients for holidays, so it makes sense to talk about whether or not you should consider training on a holiday, or I guess more, what are the considerations for those that are thinking about training on holiday and potentially not training on holiday. So before you pack your running shoes and take your resistance bands away, listen to this, because I might give you some insight that might either change your mind or reinforce what you're about to do. So obviously everyone's different. So there's a psychology that plays into this. So people treat training on holiday very differently. So I'm going to come at this with sort of like a practical overview. So even if you're like, no, I'm definitely going to try on holiday anyway, I think it's still important to listen to this, because potentially there's some really key points that could just help you improve your workouts overall. So first of all, I'm just going to go through when I would consider working out on holiday, when I would advise a client to train on holiday during their sort of training block. So for any client that is either new to exercise or returning to exercise after any kind of break, so we're just trying to create the momentum, build the consistency of the habit, and the habit isn't quite locked in yet. What we don't want to have is half terms, summer holidays, all the things that could interrupt training frequency and training consistency, like getting in the way and breaking that momentum. So I think for anyone that's sort of like new to their journey, or just knows they're struggling with consistency overall, or they're working really hard to stay consistent and it's not quite on autopilot yet, they haven't hit that kind of flow state with it, then I would suggest in that situation, doing something would help with momentum. And I think it's important to state that any kind of training on holiday is probably going to be more around maintaining momentum than it is about like being really progressive with your training. And I know there's a lot, I've done a podcast about what you would do if you've got a break from training, and people worry about losing their gains, whereas this is going to be talking more about whether or not you should even think about training on holiday. So for those that should consider working out, if you're on holiday for 2 or more weeks, now that's actually quite a lot of time to be away from the gym. So if you're just going away for a week, then I think there's more kind of question marks over it. But if your holiday is 2 weeks or more, we know that if people have gaps in their training, especially resistance training, for more than certainly 21 days, so anything more than 3 weeks, there's quite noticeable drop-offs in strength, and potentially we'll see a drop-off in muscle tissue as well. But I think it's important to, in that situation, to plan to train. One thing that's really nice about maintaining muscle tissue is all you really need is quite a low dose. So you haven't got to train 4 times per week just because you're on holiday for 2 weeks. But if you can get 1 or 2 sessions in across both of those weeks, or one of those weeks, that could be really great. But certainly the amount of time you're away for, you would consider. If you're in your first 1 to 4 weeks of a new block of training, so if you're engaged in sort of resistance training programming, and the programs are sort of 12 weeks long, 16 weeks long, for example, and you're anywhere around week 1 to 4, generally, or just normally, the start of a block of training won't be as intense. So it's not going to be as hard in weeks 1 to 4 as it will be, let's say, in weeks sort of 8 to 12, for example. So because the intensity isn't maxed out yet, taking a rest week probably doesn't make sense, whereas it might do later, which we'll come to in just a moment. Just simply, if you're heading somewhere where the gyms are mega, like in the States, Australia, some gyms in Dubai, there are some really cool gyms out there now. And you might see a gym and be like, wow, my hotel or where we're staying is really close. It's absolutely awesome gym, and I want to train there because it just looks awesome. Same with hotel gyms. Some hotel gyms are just awesome too. And if you're like me and just like going to see gyms and being in different gyms to sort of see what they've got, then I think once again, it can be quite nice to do that. And of course, if you're the sort of person that works out for sort of the mental health benefits, or let's say more just for the wellness benefits. Like you just enjoy working out, it improves your mood, it improves how you sleep, you're just a nicer person to be around. If you've just done something, then of course I think it's really important that you maintain that consistency. But okay, so let's talk about some situations where probably I wouldn't suggest working out. So this first one isn't a slam dunk, don't train, but I think it's really important to state a lot of people feel anxious about missing out on sessions. They worry that by missing a session, they're going to lose all the gains, or all the sort of things are going to gain weight, all those worries, especially if it's just for a week. Nothing bad's going to happen. Actually, for a lot of people, taking a week of training, they're going to feel better because of it. So I don't consider a week off to be a negative. I would say it will be net positive. And obviously, each person's got to come at this however feels right for them. So if you just know it's going to be, you're going to be more anxious just by missing that session, and there's absolutely no way you could not train, then of course you train. But I think it's a really important one to state that it could be quite liberating to break away from that mindset, to try and get into a routine of allowing yourself to take a week off and just enjoying time with the family or wherever you are, especially if we're going to be training in not great gyms, or you've got to travel quite far to go to the gym and it's just not quite going to kind of like tick the box as far as what you really want from a workout, and you're just doing it for the sake of doing it. I think in that situation, it can be quite good to have a workout like really close to the day that you leave, that you fly, and then have a workout directly after you get back, like the Sunday, let's say, for example. So you aren't having too much of an extended gap outside of the holiday itself. As I mentioned, a week off could be really valuable. So for anyone that is just taking a week off, I think it will be smart just to take that as a planned week, especially if you're in, again, I mentioned these blocks of training. If you're in a block of training that's like 12, 16 weeks long, and you're around week 8, so you've got 8 weeks of progression, that means your proximity to failure, so how hard you're pushing your sets, is much closer to your max. I would say in that situation, I would really look at that as a purposefully planned week off for intentional recovery, recognizing that exercise is a physical stressor. By increasing the load or the volume, or increasing the stress upon the system, therefore you have to recover from it. If you're 8 weeks, 12 weeks into a block of training and you've still got 4, 6 weeks to go, then you could just take that week off as, like, rather than deloading and keep you on going, you could take that as your intentional recovery week, and then just chill out, enjoy the recovery, come back, and you're more likely to feel fresh from that week off. And then you can carry on for the last 4 or 6 weeks of your block and push hard through to the end of the block overall. So that can be a really nice way to sort of frame what a week off really is. It's an intentional recovery week. And if you can even plan your holidays, no, I wouldn't plan the holidays around it, but certainly if you can see in advance your holidays landing at somewhere around the latter stage of a block, pre-planning your mind proactively, great. I already know that's going to be a rest week, so you can push hard that week before, then really enjoy the week off to rest. If it's just a weekend, of course, you're not going to bother. I will just say to take the weekend off overall. If your gym access is limited, basic equipment, if you're going to try and put together a workout with dumbbells from 1 to 10, a bench, a ball, an elliptical, it's going to be really infuriating. The only time I would consider working out in that situation is if it's more than 2 weeks, or certainly more than a week. Then putting together some sort of workout using sort of like isolation-based exercises could be a really smart thing to do. So some sort of considerations overall, some key takeaways are that, of course, this idea of maintaining momentum can be really, really useful. So for a lot of people, just maintaining the momentum, or really for that sort of mental health, wellness, just training helps with that side of things, and a consistency approach. I totally get that. I really don't like the idea of someone going from a structured resistance training program and then they can see they're going away for a week. There's no gym equipment. They haven't run for months, if not years. So they're going to go and take their trainers and just like go for few 5K runs. I don't love that. Like, I like the idea of building up, like couch to 5K, specifically build up to 5Ks rather than just like throwing on the treadmill, they're throwing on the trainers and going for that run. Or like hashing together some sort of body weight HIIT workout, or just like, oh, I'll just download a YouTube video and just do a HIIT workout. Again, I don't love the idea of that. I just don't see the point. Again, I can see if it's going to help someone with the momentum, I get it. but that workout isn't going to serve any purpose from a progressive form of training. Yeah, it burns a few calories, but then the question is, why would that be important? I'd rather the person just go and try and be active, get outside in nature, go for a morning walk, and basically enjoy the time. Again, of course, it's entirely up to you. I just like people to stay quite close to what they're doing. So when I've got clients that are going on holiday and I can see they've got limited equipment and they've shown me the hotel they're going to, I'll just make like for like swaps. If they're doing barbell bench press, we'll move them to push-ups. If they're already doing push-ups, of course, they can just stick to doing push-ups. There's always a situation where some movement patterns are notoriously hard to load without gym equipment. Things like vertical pulls, so chin up variations, like pull down variations. You're going to need a machine for that. And row variations in general can be quite tough to do. Certainly if you're in a situation where you've just got body weight to work with. The hips, the hamstrings, the glutes, they can take a lot of workload. So you're going to need access to a decent amount of load to do that, or certainly up the total amount of work you put through. So if you're used to doing heavy hip thrusts and deadlifts, and now all of a sudden you've got to do a bazillion mini band exercises, I really don't love that. I just feel like that's just doing it for the sake of doing it. I'd rather clients take the week off, take it as rest, then come back the week after and then be able to do the exercise that they normally would do, loaded to the point in which it's hard, and then carry on with that. So I really like the idea of maintaining the theme of the workout. Keep any changes you're going to do in a hotel gym or anything around the holiday itself based on what you're currently doing. Because you notice some things, as I already touched on, they're easily transferable. Push-ups you can do anywhere. If you're doing split squats in your gym workout and you're going on holiday, you can do split squats. The only thing you might need to do every now and then is like adjust a rep range. So if you're doing like 6 to 8 reps heavy and you get to a gym that hasn't got dumbbells over, let's say 20 kilos, maybe you're going to need to go for a lighter load, or let's say 10 kilos. You might need to go for a lighter load and much higher reps. I don't mind that. I just really don't like the idea of just like making random stuff up, because all a lot of random stuff's going to do, it's going to make someone unnecessarily sore because it's unfamiliar movements. And again, for a week's holiday, I just don't really see the point. So finally, guilt plays into this a lot. So what I think it's really important to state that if it is guilt that drives a decision to train, then that probably wants to be addressed. Knowing that a week off isn't going to be the end of the world, recognizing that 2 weeks off, you might want to do something. But even if you've got 2 weeks off, you could just do the exercises that are hard, like do push-ups, chest to floor push-ups. They're hard, or a variation of single leg hamstring bridges, single leg squat to a chair. Pick the exercises that are hard, that match similar to the exercise you're doing anyway. And I think that can be really, really good. But I think the mindset around just having it as intentional rest can be really, really powerful. And this is basically what I do with my clients. We chat before the holiday and we come up with a strategy that best fits where they are in their training, what they're trying to achieve overall, make any tweaks needed for the workout to make sure they can be consistent. But I'm always on the lookout to make sure clients don't feel guilty for missing sessions, because holidays are to be enjoyed. So it's really important to go away and enjoy it. So that's it. That's my sort of points on training on holiday. Hopefully that was useful. And if you'd like to put some of that into practice in your own training, they are now available online for training.